Hardest job in sports? Being the GM. Easiest job? Pretending to be the GM. Let's do it. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. If you're Kyle Dubas, meaning you're actually operating with all of the same constraints, the contracts, the cap restrictions, the no movement clauses, the roster limits, the field of prospects already in your pool, and all of those things, you will have a much, much harder time doing any of that than what I'm about to suggest, which is really, really simple. Let's pretend, first of all, that we're him, and second, that somehow, some way, he's cleared an additional $5 million in cap space. Meaning there's Jeff Carter and his retirement, so there's 3, and someone takes Riley Smith off your hands for whatever reason. I mean, it's a big league. There's 31 other GMs. Not all of them are intelligent. Somebody would take Smith just based on pedigree, name, he's wearing a ring, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it was that Dubas fell for, okay, like that. And then remember that the cap goes up a little bit. So one way or another, we're all around $8 million, okay? There's $8 million to spend, and let's presume that it's not a volume buy, meaning you don't have to fill 3 or 4 vacancies with this $8 million. This is just the $8 million that you have sitting around in the right pocket, ready to spend on the right player. The question that I have for you is, what position, and be specific here, would you want to spend that money on? You could get yourself an impact player, and you can do it with, it doesn't have to be the whole amount. If whoever it is available for, $4 million or $5 million, whatever. But what would be the position? I'm going to give you a handful of seconds here to try to think about that for yourself. Just pretend I'm doing like the Jeopardy song and the little clock is do, 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 do. Okay. All right. You got yours now? You have a position? All right. Remember, you got to be specific here. It can't just be a forward. Say it's got to be like a, second line right winger or whatever. Who do you got? What do you got? Want to know mine? It's not going to be popular. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Left-handed D. And yeah, I know they signed Ryan Graves to be that last year. But guess what? That was a swing and a miss. That was a big, big, big swing and an even bigger miss. It's one of the bigger contract misses, at least through 1 year, to be fair to the kid, in the history of this franchise. No hype there. Find one that's more expensive and that's a bigger miss. You won't be able to, okay? I covered Paul Martin when he was seen as a dud. Martin turned it around after 1 year, but we'll see what happens in this case. This is a need, not only from the standpoint of the depth chart, just glancing at the roster and saying, oh, clearly you need somebody else that you can trust behind Marcus Pettersson. If you do that, then you have some support for both Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang, depending on how you arrange those guys, who's the one, who's the two, who plays with Pettersson, who doesn't. But I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes to a team that, depending on the type of defenseman that you would get, doesn't get enough mobility and points production from the back end. It gets all of it, almost all of it, from 2 players. It's a team that blows leads like crazy. It's a team that isn't all that great on penalty killing. We focused so much on the power play this past season that it could be lost that the special teams overall weren't great. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you were wearing Pettersson down. I mean, he played endlessly on the PK. And that's not healthy. So did Graves, which also wasn't healthy in its own way. And I just feel like it would add more of a sense of identity to this team that would work in hand with what they discovered over the past month, which is that if they defend, if they play just as hard at all points of the rink as they do in the attacking zone, they're going to be fine. They can contend. That would further fortify that message to everybody in the room. Oh, this is what we're about. It's not scoring goals. It's not finding a power play specialist or whatever. It's defending. That's where we're going to put our money. I'm in favor of that. I want to hear yours wherever it is that you find this show. And most commonly, it's on our site on DK Pittsburgh Sports. You can put your feedback in the comments there. On YouTube, you can put it in the comments there. I'll be able to see it. Wherever it is, tell me your preferred position. Again, be specific. And heck, if you want to name a player or a pending free agent, you can take this all the way. In the meantime, on this episode, we'll be right back with J1Q. Today's J1Q, and man, it must have been 100% a response to the Jacob Trouba subject from yesterday. Chris Van Gorder writes, "Nothing happened?" Well, no, nothing happened, Chris. And Chris is, of course, referring to anything remotely resembling supplemental discipline. But that's not what's galling about it. I didn't expect for a second that the NHL was going to break some kind of new ground regarding Trouba, of all people. If they were ever going to break new ground, it wouldn't be in relation to a player who they've clearly coddled for years. He's not where they would break the line of demarcation, if you see what I'm saying. So I didn't think there would be a, hearing toward a suspension or even a phone call or a fine. Nothing. And that's exactly what happened. That's not what gets me. It's pretty easy to go on any social media mechanism and just do a search to see what people are talking about in that moment or in the most recent 24 hours. And I did that with Trouba. I typed in 2 words. This was on Twitter or X. And they were Trouba and hearing. You know what turned up? Like almost nothing. There was one tweet from some fan about, "I'm hearing this and that about Trouba." Oh, that wasn't relation to Trouba and a hearing. There was just nothing. There was nothing written by anybody. There was nothing spoken by anybody that showed up on this rather far-reaching social media platform. Nothing. Zero. Nobody was even talking about it. If you go back to some of Tom Wilson's more egregious hits, you're waiting the next day, the one thing that you want to hear from the NHL, regardless of which direction it goes, is there going to be a hearing? So you would do that. You would type in, Wilson and hearing or Tom Wilson and hearing. And you would see a zillion comments. This one had nothing. And I'm convinced that that's partly because he's Trouba, and man, have they, the NHL, the Department of Player Safety, the entire New York atmosphere that has coddled him, that has protected him, that has shielded him for years is a pretty powerful thing. But I also think that there are any number of people who just aren't aware of the wording of these rules, that they aren't aware that the phrasing for a match penalty, the most severe penalty that you can assess to somebody on the ice, involves attempt to injure, intent to injure. The only anything I could find from anybody on this subject, and I'm not saying this to be self-serving, I'm just being honest with you, was from me. It was my quoting the rule and then saying, here's this, accompanied by a video. And that prompted some radio show in New York to come at me. And then there was a guy from ESPN who I respect so little that I can't even breathe his name on this program, come in and take cheap shots about how I'm all this and I'm all that because of something that Trouba did to Sidney Crosby, which I'm not going to lie to you, in the moment, I can't even recall it. I do remember that Trouba significantly hurt Ricard Raquel in the most recent series. I'm sure he must have done something to Sid, but I don't remember it, much less have it influence my opinion of Trouba. Trouba does this to everybody, okay? And every time he does it, I speak up about it. It has nothing to do with being from Pittsburgh. But hey, nice lazy take by a guy who lives off lazy takes as opposed to real reporting. But that was it. That was it. There was nothing. Zero. So you know what? Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm so far the outlier here that, as one of these two guys put it on this show, that I'm reading the rule book as if it's the Constitution. Well, what the hell is the rule book for if it's not to lay out the rules? What kind of line was that? Look, again, if that's what they want, and if they really, really, really think that Trouba could have gotten away with all of this various behavior wearing another sweater, they're out of their minds or they're lying to themselves. If Trouba had played for the St. Louis Blues his entire career, he would have had a regular shuttle back and forth to these hearings. But that's not what happens. He's there, so he's okay. Everybody else around us is okay with it. Well, of course they are. There's 13 million of them there. They're all very happy to have him. But I'll tell you this, too. That thing that I put up on social media got 1.1 million impressions. And it got that because it got spread around. So I can't be the only one who thinks it. I appreciate the question, Chris. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we're going to do another one of these tomorrow. And remember, again, that's with your help. Get in touch.